Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rum Fire community meeting that's here for you. And I really want to make this clear from the beginning. The intention of all of us being here is for you to know everything that we know so that you can have every question answered. Because we know this is your community and we're here because of you and your homes and your forest. So we're going to go through all these very knowledgeable professionals, and they're going to share with you some very pertinent information, and then we will get some time at the end for some question and answers. I want to also add that we are not only here face-to-face, but we also have viewers on Facebook Live. And we welcome them in the comments and their questions that you have. We have public information officers who are in the back room who are answering their questions or responding to their comments, even as we're here talking face-to-face. So again, thank you so much for being here. We're talking about Rum Creek Fire, right? And that fire is about, let me check here again, as of 8 o'clock last night, it was about 11,000 acres. And with that comes, we have about 1,300 firefighters that are here fighting that fire on your behalf. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started and get a current status update of what the fire is doing. But before we do that, I want to start off with a little historical information by Chief Austin Prince, who's going to talk about how it started.
My name is Austin Prince. I'm the Operations Chief for Rural Metro Fire here in Josephine County. My normal job, 365 days a year, is to help protect you guys, your homes, and the community right here around Grants Pass, Merlin, North Valley. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be the structures that are burning or the car wrecks that are occurring, but we also very much embrace wildland suppression as well. And we're constantly doing that in a true unified fashion with our partners in the Department of Forestry, ODF, and on occasion with the U.S. Forest Service. So when things like this happen, it is not an unusual event for our involvement. So I'm going to try to sketch a little bit as to what that might have looked like. I'm going to start by just reminding everybody that on this day, 35 years ago, we had a lightning storm that came through this same community and torched off a whole bunch of lightning fires. It was the 1987 storm that came through that started fires like the Silver Complex. I wasn't necessarily involved at that point, but I do have a lot of folks that have remembered waking up the next day and seeing multiple mushroom clouds all the way around our entire valley. And they did everything they could to bring that stuff under control. And I do believe the Silver Fire that was burning up in this, basically the same area, got to about 96,000 acres. Well, this is not an unusual event for this area. If any of you have lived here for any length of time, you know that storms that come through have a tendency to light a lot of fire out in that country because of its remote area. But we do have fires that start right here locally. You can look back at the Biscuit Fire, you can look at the Klondike, Taylor Creek, Big Windy, Douglas Complex. We've definitely had a fair share of fires in this area from lightning. It is just one of those things we have no control over. But we do have a very, very good response force that takes on a lot of this stuff. The night of August 17th, I believe, the storm came through this area, and I think we're looking at somewhere near 70 or 54 fires that occurred over in this area, and all but one basically got handled. It was a real hard attack on all those fires. Some of you might recall up here in the North Valley area about the fires up Jump Off Joe, Jack Creek, Sunny Valley, all the way up into Wolf Creek. And we definitely did a lot of work. These firefighters that are right here every day patrolling our areas did a hell of a job getting that taken care of. Well, unfortunately, we had this particular fire in Rum Creek that is, if you've done any type of hunting or hiking or outdoor adventuring in this area, once you go up bear camp into that country, you're dealing with some pretty tough country. That makes it a challenge for firefighting. When we had the opportunity to commit fire resources, ODF put an energy into sending up resources. I even loaned one of my firefighters to go with them based on his experience, and they went up there to assess what could be done on the Rum Creek drainage. Unfortunately, that was also the same day that Tyler died. So unfortunately, that didn't set the initial tone real good, but it didn't stop the energy that was being placed into putting it out. For the rest of the time leading up to last Friday night, we stayed in a very assertive role here, watching out for what was being done up there on that hill on your behalf, just to see what was being done and watching the resources being committed to attempting to contain that fire. Again, facing very, very tough terrain. Unfortunately, on Friday evening, they did experience what a lot of us are aware of in this area about, some very significant wind events. If you've ever tried to raft down the Rogue River in the afternoon, you find out how much that upwind canyon type of breeze really does cause you problems. Well, that happened to push that fire off the hill and comes right down into the Galice area. I was actually the one point contact for the team that was up there at the time, Team 13, with the ability to mobilize structural protection resources in the local reserve that we have, and I was able to put 12 fire engines out there within 90 minutes to protect Galice, which may sound like a lot, but actually when you start to really look at what this fire was going to potentially do and where it could potentially go, we were definitely going to be faced with a lot of challenge. And we're talking about fire departments all the way from Grants Pass to Cave Junction and all the way to Ashland were here to help us with the defense of those structures. And at that time, we were dealing with most of the activity coming down into Alameda, where the Alameda Park is, and the Smullen Visitor Center. So as the crews got into that area at that moment, the fire activity was so intense that they were unable to engage the fire right there in Alameda, so they had to back out. As soon as things kind of calmed out, and unfortunately the fire jumped the river and was over on the other side in that very steep country with no roads, the crews went back into the houses that were right there in and around Rand and Alameda and began the protection that was necessary of those homes. Unfortunately, we did lose one home that was across the street from the park, up on the hill. There was a cabin up there that was somebody's home, and we did lose a couple of outbuildings. However, to this point now in the incident, this many days, we have not lost any other structures. And I can tell you that that's certainly something that we will continue to place as a priority. However, that same night, Friday at 10 o'clock in the evening, I got together with the team IC and operations, and we basically huddled up for a conference to order up a lot more stuff. It included structural resources that would be necessary to protect homes if the fire was to continue to march towards Galice, up Galice Creek, Taylor Creek, and all the way up into like Indian Mary and up and over into Hog Creek, because the potential was there, and we were trying to forecast. And as of today, I think we're at 63 fire engines basically assigned to this fire just to protect homes. I can't produce that myself, so I have to call for help. And that goes all the way up through the state fire marshal's office. We've even got a handful of engines here from California that are here to help us. So it also gives us the opportunity to refocus on our everyday emergencies. Just because there's a fire burning in Galice doesn't make the stuff I have to do for you go away. I still have to maintain a service delivery right here in the North Valley area and throughout all of my service area, all the way to Murphy and Wilderville. So these guys are all here to help us, help you, help do this entire job. And so we're actively still engaged. I have fire crews out there on the fire myself. I have 2 crews that are actually running what they call a remote rescue team. They're the rescue team for the firefighters if they get in trouble. And we're obviously very connected at the command post as well. So we're keeping tabs on every detail that they're going to basically go over with you tonight, just to make sure that we can eloquently refer back to those actions that are being taken on your guys' behalf. So this is not over with yet, but we are definitely putting everything we can towards it. So that's what I have to say at this point.
I'm John Spencer, one of the operations chiefs for Northwest Team 13. It is an honor and a privilege to be here to serve your communities. What I'm about to share with you is what our fire activity currently is doing on the West Zone, and this fire has been broken into West Zone and East Zone since our agency partners, Oregon Department of Forestry, has joined us and also the Oregon State Fire Marshal's office has joined us in our efforts to keep the fire footprint as small as possible. And so I'm going to share with you where our activity currently is, and then I'm going to share with you a little bit of what our actions have been to try to contain the fire on the west side and around to the south side and a little on the north side. When we originally showed up, our team was asked to be here to take over the fire and try to corral it. We had the whole fire. We had all sides of the fire, and we were putting in plans in place and getting actions and resources in to be able to accomplish our objectives. And then we had, as Chief said here, that we had on that Friday night quite a weather event. Fire got up quite dramatically. Unfortunately, west winds put it over the rogue, and then we increased our fire footprint, and that's when we knew we were going to need more help. And so we have that help. Things are getting put into place, and actions are occurring as we speak. Not more than 20 minutes ago, I was still listening to the radio of what was going on the fire. So you're going to get current information at this time. And please be aware, you have time to ask questions at the end. And some of us will be hanging around. If you want to ask us some personal questions about your locations, you can ask those. So first of all, I'm sure you all have been looking at the maps, and that we have broken the fire into divisions. And on the east side, we are currently responsible for Division Echo to the north of the Rogue River, and then Division Alpha and Division Whiskey. Those are our divisions that we're currently working on. Tomorrow, you will see another division added to the map, and it will be down here on the south, and it will be Division Yankee. We are tasked often, or all the time, to look out 24, 48, 72 hours out in advance where we think that fire could go, and we plan accordingly to put our divisions around the fire, and we do it in a manner that we know it could expand. And that's what it has done, and so we've added another division. So currently, fire footprint. You guys have been smoked in, correct? For a few days here. Well, we have too, and up on the fire it's even thicker, and it's very hard to see. Over 80% of the fire zone has been covered with smoke up where we are doing our operations for the last couple days. That means we can't fly aircraft to support us on the ground. And our firefighters have a hard time seeing through the smoke to where the fire's perimeter actually is. So we have some technology that's been helping us out, and I'll share that with you in just a little bit. So currently, fire footprint, as you guys know, it is being held and checked and has not moved. We've done an incredible job with fire retardant and lots of bucket work just off of to the north off the Rogue River. And it has not moved out of East Fork of Rum Creek, if you know where that is. It's been checked up in there for a good long time since that fire moved into that area. Where we're currently getting some activity on the perimeter of our fire, you know, fire is growing a little bit everywhere, but yesterday and today we've been having a little bit of activity down here to the south in this area in Division Whiskey. And we have been working hard to put containment lines around the south end, and we have got those containment lines all the way around, and our crews are currently working, they already have containment lines to the north, all the way up along the western flank. All those lines are completed. They are prepped. They are ready to be used. What we have going right down here is we have some fire that has been running uphill a little bit tonight. We got some lifting, we call it open air, and the fire got some fresh oxygen and has been picking up just like it did last night. So we have a lot of hotshot crews and resources off of our lines here trying to hold the fire right there. And that sometimes means that we have to nurse it or tickle it by putting a little bit of fire on the ground, and we're just in little tiny spots. We've been adding some fire to check up the fire that's coming towards us, and so far it's all been successful, holding well. And so that's it, one area of activity. And then here in a little bit, ODF is going to come up. John Flanagan is going to let you know where they have a couple more areas on the east flank of where it's picked up a little bit also. And then lastly, I want you to know that I told you we look out. And we not only have a primary line out here off the flank of this fire, but we also have a secondary line. We call it an alternate line that we have built, and crews are continuing to work on that alternate line, working south farther out from the primary line. And then down here, we started engaging resources down in Division Yankee that we'll have here north of the Taylor Creek Road. And as you guys know the fire history around here, there's a lot of old dozer lines all over the place, and we're utilizing those and we're reopening them. And so we have a dozer action going down here on the south, and we're going to be working around through this area all the way back up to the road system out here, and this is Bear Camp Road, of course, and we'll tie into that so we get this blocked off again, and just in case our fire gets out and gets across Bear Camp. Right now our confidence level is pretty high that we're checking it up to the south really well. And then I want you to know that right in here is the town of Galise, of course, you guys know that. And we have our Oregon State Fire Marshal group in there working around the structures, doing a phenomenal job. And the shot crews brought fire around and finished up all around the structures last night, just nursing it, tickling it, keeping it coming. And now that's all completed. So we now have no fire that's going to push that part of the community in Galise. That doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet, because we have fire activity over here still cleaning up. We have embers in the air, and so all of those structure resources are putting sprinklers on roofs, and they are patrolling constantly to make sure that we don't miss any embers that could land as a result of activity in those areas. So I've been speaking a lot, but I hope that gave you somewhat of a general picture, and if you want more details later, we'd be glad to try to answer those questions for you. Thank you very much.
Good evening, I'm John Flanagan. I'm with Oregon Department of Forestry, and we've been assigned the western or the eastern flank of the fire. And just kind of orient you, this is Lower Graves Creek here. This is the Galise Road and the Rogue River, Stratton Creek here, Hog Creek here. And what we've done is we always want to start our work from an anchor so we have a safe place to go to. Right up to the mouth? Okay. We try to start with an anchor point. The fire was pretty much looking like this when we got here about 3 days ago. So we anchored here and started to the north. This is Stratton Creek, and we anchored in the north on Lower Graves Creek and started this way. Because of the amount of room we have to do, we found some black we could get in here and started in the middle as well. But off of Lower Graves Creek, we've got fire line. It's a hand line up the first quite a bit, and then we've used a ridge line to come down and tie in with that. It was too steep for the dozers, and so we did a 5-foot hand line with 10 foot of throwback of brush. Things are looking good there. A fire did pick up there late in the day today, but not aware of any problems. But fire's moving around a little bit in there. Then utilizing some roads and the ridges through here, we've been working some heavy equipment, and we have our initial line actually pushed from here all the way down through and tied back into the Rogue. Now that's just our initial line. It's not ready to burn off of yet. But we've also had the opportunity in several places where the fire's kind of laid down to get in right tight and go direct on the line. It's a mix of hand line and a mix of also dozer line. We have to get something in we know we can work with first, and then when we have opportunities, we get closer and try to tighten up and reduce acres. We also have a group out here working these roads, opening things up. Have a fire line down this ridge as well as one down this ridge, and those are contingency lines just in case our primary lines fail. We'll have something to fall back on. And one of the things all three of the teams are doing is we have pretty robust night shifts. So there's people out there 24 hours, and we get a lot of good work done at night. Fire lays down a little bit. It gives us an opportunity to get closer to the fire or right on the fire, string hose, dig line, and we're in a real good place right now. We're certainly not out of the woods. This was actually a Hog Creek fire that was one of the fires that started in the lightning event, and the Rum Creek fire is now burnt just about to it and will probably be incorporated in its boundary. But overall, things are going well, and we got our fingers crossed. We're cautiously optimistic. It's a fluid, dynamic system, but we're in good shape right now.
All right, so my name is Mark Corliss. I'm with the Oregon State Fire Marshals group, and I'm part of the team with Oregon Department of Forestry Team 1 and Team 13. So they brought us in, and we're primarily, like Chief Prince was talking about, we're primarily focused on the structures. And so that gives the opportunity for Team 13 and Team 1 to focus on the footprint of the fire and the perimeter of the fire, so they don't have to worry about the houses, pull people off the line from stopping that progression of the fire, and focus on the community. That's what we do. We have the entire fire for the structure protection, and so we have groups plugged in there day and night like John was talking about. Primary focus has been in Gillese right now. We got 3 task forces in there every day and 2 at night, just kind of making sure that that's buttoned up. The first John talked about that and all the good work that we helped those folks do and they helped us do to protect those houses. We have another group that's kind of on the south end of the fire along the Gillese Road, kind of up into Division Whiskey, if you remember that was on the west side of the fire. And they're helping those wildland crews kind of, like he said, kind of snake the fire around those houses up there. There's a couple up in there. And then primarily a lot of the work on the south end has been triaging and prepping those houses. So we kind of get the amber catches away from the houses, so if an amber falls in there, it's not going to burn the whole house down. And it will give us a little bit of time. If we're driving by, we can see there's a fire burning, and so we can swing in there and it's not going to be right up against the house. So on the north end of the fire, up there on Lower Graves, we have a presence up there, also 2 task forces day and night, and their primary job is to triage and start that structure prep. A lot of the work on the north and the very south as you go east is just in anticipation, like we talked about earlier, of what may happen. And so we kind of have to plan ahead, because when you get behind the curve of the fire, then you're trying to play catch up the whole time. So we like to be ahead of the curve. We also have, can you zoom out just a little bit? There you go. So we also have 4 more task forces, and most of those came from Cal OES. They sent some forces up here to help us out, and most of those folks are kind of out a little bit further to the east of Hog Creek and down into the town and all the way up and around the hook. They're coming from Leland up into Wolf Creek, and they're coming down all the way into Merlin, and we're just kind of getting our eyes on, and we're making a big plan in case something goes wrong, so we're ready to go and we can get people plugged in where they need to be. So I appreciate y'all coming tonight, and we'll be here later to answer questions.
Good evening, everyone. Dave Daniel, Josephine County Sheriff. You saw that I came around the back here and walked in between the rows, and that's because if I made any of these guys in the front row angry over the last week, I'd get punted. So, at any rate, some of you may ask, what's the sheriff doing up here with all these firefighters? And I'm going to try and explain that for you. So, I have the responsibility to protect 3 primary things: your life, your property, and your liberty. I take that very seriously. Number 1, your life. I'm responsible through Oregon Revised Statute, that being state law, to authorize evacuations. Now, I'm not a firefighter, although after all the fires we've had around here, I feel like it over the last 8 years. This team is professional. They're good. They're good at what they do, and yeah, please give them a round of applause, because they sure darn deserve it. I look to them for advice. I sit in on the meetings. I'm connected at the hip with all these men and women. I take their advice. Sometimes I don't. I'm not going to lie to you, it's happened. But when I talk about evacuation levels, it's your property and it's your life. Please take those seriously. They are paramount to our mission. Number one, your life, and number two, your property. Your property being the National Guard, helping with checkpoints. This team has asked for the National Guard to come in. They are now here, a bunch of them from across the state. So although they're not here represented tonight, wherever you are, if you're seeing this on Facebook Live, to the National Guard that are here, thank you very much for your service and coming down and helping us out. If you do not have to go into any of these level 3 evacuation areas or close to them, please stay out. Please stay out. The firefighters need the road. They need to get in and out. The people and the residents that need to get back to their property to grab, that birth certificate that they forgot, need to be able to get in. Please stay away. I call it looky-looing. Don't looky-loo. Stay out of there, please. So really that's all I have. I've authorized all the evacuations that are on, or at least the levels that are up there. I will continue to do so. I will continue to work with this team diligently every day until this darn thing is out, just like all the ones in the past. And it will be out. I guarantee you that. If they can't stop it, God will. And so that's the bottom line. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, who can start her way up here. This is our Josephine County Emergency Manager, Emily Ring. And I'm going to ask her to maybe go over some of the evacuation grids and areas that we've done. If you have any questions about the Sheriff's Office or what's going on with this fire, reach out to this team. There's a lot of public information out there. You can call me or email me personally. I'll do everything I can to keep you informed and keep you safe, most importantly. Thanks.
Thank you. So I wanted to go over some things that I think are of interest to everyone. And then for those that have very specific questions or concerns about evacuations about your household or your address, after we are done, come find me so I can get in depth with you personally, one-on-one, about your own specifics. So we'll be available over there on the side with a sign. I wanted to remind folks that there are 3 levels of evacuations here in Oregon. The one, be ready, that's the lowest level. It's green on our maps. So you can see where our level 1s are currently. That means that, yes, a threat is indicated in your area, but right now no action really required or recommended other than, hey, heads up, did you know there was a potential threat in your area? Did you know you have the potential for it to increase as a hazard? And are you monitoring? And if you haven't already worked on preparedness plans for fire season, now would be a great time to start in a level 1. And then a 2, a be set. So those are the yellows. Right? So be set to go. That's an elevated level. It means a 2 can flip to a 3 quickly, depending on how the fire behavior is, or hopefully you sit at a 2 for a little while, and when situations have stabilized, we can downgrade to a 1. And then the level 3, of course, the most urgent and concerning, the reds, the level 3 go now. By then, there's no more preparing, there's no more packing, you need to be heading out. Wanted to make sure that everyone knew it's a little different than we have done before here in Josephine County, but from here on out, including the earlier level 3s that I sent, we're going to use all the alerting tools in our toolbox. So not just citizen alert, which we typically use, that is very targeted. I can get one person or I can get the whole county. I'm also using WIA, which is a wireless emergency alert. It can grab cell towers in an area and blast out whether you're in my system or not. Also using the EAS, that's for broadcasters. It interrupts your TV or radio broadcast system. So from here on out, including the ones I sent, all 3 tools, the reason I want you to know that is because EAS and WIAs, they're a federal level tool, they have bleed over. I don't have control over how far those cellular towers broadcast. And when it comes to radio and TV, there are 6 counties in our broadcast region, and all 6 counties can duplicate and pass forward my message. So I know that some of you have struggled with the descriptions of the evacuation areas. I have struggled with you because I am character limited and I am tool limited and I have to walk a fine line. So again, if you have any concerns, complaints, I'm here for you. I will happily walk you through it. I'm going to be right over there in the corner. A couple of other things I wanted to let you know. If you're in a level 1 or a level 2, I wanted to have you think about the 6 P's of evacuation. We've posted about the 6 P's a couple of times on rvm.org and on my Josephine County Emergency Management Facebook page. Those are things like people, pets, prescriptions, photos, paperwork. Those are the kinds of things. What do I do? What do I grab? Those are the basics that will help you in a worst case situation. If you have to start over, what's the foundational things that you need? Now's a good time to be working on that. One last thing, who else besides me is at that table over there? I have Red Cross next to me. So we've had a Red Cross table or Red Cross shelter operating since this weekend at the fairgrounds for humans as well as animals. They're co-located currently at the shelter. Anything Red Cross or shelter related, they're right there next to me. And then for anybody who's more comfortable with Spanish language interpretation or materials, we have an interpreter with us and we have Spanish language materials. I also have our FireWise coordinator. So at a level 1 or 2, within restrictions, you can still be doing defensible space work. So Rick McClintock, our FireWise coordinator, is there to chat with you about what you can do right now. And then otherwise, I just have a bunch of handy, fun materials for you that you can pick up, as well as ways to put in questions about your Citizen Alert account or how to register. So all kinds of goodies over there. Who's next?
Amber Ortega, I am the Air Resource Advisor on the Rum Creek Fire. That's a fancy word for the smoke specialist. I am part of the Interagency Wildland Fire Air Quality Response Program. So that program exists to help the public, the firefighters, the team, and everyone in between be aware of what's going on with the smoke. Smoke forecasting is a fairly new thing. You can't just open your iPhone and get a smoke forecast the way you can get a weather forecast. That's complicated because the smoke in the air is dependent on what the fire's doing right now. As you guys saw Friday night, the fire increased. We got a lot of more acres. The fire expanded, but it really wasn't until last night did the smoke get really bad. That's the interaction between the fire behavior and the weather. The difference between a clear day and a dirty day near a fire is the weather, where the wind's coming from, where the wind's going to. The reason the fire did not produce a lot of smoke towards the areas that we're in now, or Grants Pass, Medford, Ashland, is because of the wind fields. We had a bit of a wind shift, which caused the smoke to lay down, and that's what we're all sitting in right now. Each day we release a smoke forecast. If you can scroll out a little bit. This smoke forecast is released every day. It is on the Rum Creek Fire Facebook page. This is where you can get more information about what's going on for you guys. If you go to the fire and smoke map, which will be linked on here and in that Facebook post, that can give you data on what the air is doing where you are right now. I will tell you something, it's called environmental psychology. When you can see that smoke plume, we all get alarmed, we all get worried, but it's really when it gets milky down here at the surface is when the health effects are coming into play. Sensitive populations, older adults, people with heart and lung issues, children, pregnant women, those are folks that should take precautions pretty early when smoke gets bad. Smoke has cumulative effects. So that first day you might not feel effects. Day 2, 3, 4 is when everybody starts getting a little ornery and you start feeling a little under the weather. We have resources out there. It will be on the Facebook page for you to be able to make a clean air shelter in your house, in the fairgrounds and places like that. It's important to get some clean air. You can do things inside your house to make your environment cleaner. That would be refreshing that air filter on your HVAC system. That would be limiting new indoor air pollution. You know, if you're going to cook indoors when smoke is this bad, you can't open your windows to get fresh air. You might even concentrate the smoke if you bring more inside. So in terms of why is the smoke sometimes bad and sometimes not so bad, that has to do with the wind fields and the complex terrain. You guys have been through this before. This area routinely gets smoked out in the summers. The way the winds line up with each individual canyon, if you've driven that Galease Road in the past, you know it's very windy. There's different terrain features, and if that prevailing wind lines up with some of the terrain there, the winds get a little bit faster. So smoke can move in lots of different directions at the same time. You might have sat there before it got smoked in here and looked at the smoke plume and saw, hey, it's going this way on one level and then goes up and goes a different way. That's the complexities of forecasting smoke. So I'm interwoven here with the team. I work with fire behavior, I work with the incident meteorologist, and we come together to make a plan of what the smoke's going to do, not only for firefighting efforts. You heard, sometimes they can have trouble getting aircraft to help out because of the smoke. We help them and we help you guys stay informed. I will tell you right now, for the next couple days, I don't foresee a change in weather until about Friday. And so we're going to deal with the smoke intermittently, thickening and then lessening and thickening again over the next couple days. So this is the time now when we've only had one night of smoke to get that clean air shelter in place, to get some of those resources going. And I will tell you, in an I don't want to use the term emergency in this room like that, but if it's getting real smoky and you have to be outdoors, your best bet is to be in your car with your AC and your recirculation on. I'm in camp, I'm breathing in this smoke, I'm sleeping in this smoke, and I had to do an hour in the car yesterday of just some fresh air for my own benefit. So take advantage of that. I'll be in the back there. I can give you some more information about your specific area. We'll be doing a forecast again every day. We're doing twice a day Facebook briefings for you guys, and I'm happy to serve this community. Thank you.
All right, my name's Dean Warner. I'm the fire behavior analyst, one of the fire behavior analysts with this group. I work with the other analysts and the IMETs, incident meteorologists, and Amber there to help the operational effort complete the picture so that they can apply the appropriate tactics for the best level of success out there. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the weather we've been having and some of the things about fire behavior. First of all, since this fire started, we've been fairly persistent, hot, dry weather. 90s have been very common, and low RHs, relative humidity, in the lower 20s. And a pretty steady diet of north and northwest winds, oftentimes in the afternoon, exceeding 30 miles per hour on the ridge tops. From here forward, Amber kind of alluded to it, but we got a couple more days of this hot, dry weather going forward. And what's going to change that is a dry cold front coming through around Friday, I believe, and that's just what it is. It's a dry cold front. It brings increased winds, which isn't good for the firefighting effort, but it also brings down the temperatures, but doesn't necessarily do much for the humidity. It's still going to be dry out there. So going into fire behavior here, what's driving this fire? Well, some things are pretty obvious. Of course, hot, dry weather. And that dries out the fuels out there. And given the season that we're in right now, late August, going into towards the end of summer here, into September, those dry fuels the dead fuels are as dry as they can be. They're very receptive to fire moving. Also, the live fuels out there, all the live vegetation, it's also stressed because of the lack of moisture. So it is becoming more available every day for the fire to progress through the forest. Also, we've had a fair amount of wind on the fire, like I said, both general winds, that's the winds up in the atmosphere surfacing to the ground, 30 miles per hour on the ridgetops. We also have that big thing out there called the Rogue River, which has quite a few bends in it, which can be tricky to predict and provide a lot of air upward onto the hilltops. And there's this other thing out there that the meteorologists keep on telling me about. It's an unstable atmosphere. And when we have an unstable atmosphere over the fire, it allows for upward air movement. And that upward air movement recycles and brings dry air into the base of the fire as well. Fortunately, the conditions of the smoke, however unpleasant they are, do not allow the sun to radiate the earth and provide that extra amount of heat. So actually, the smoke is good for the fire not relying on that upward air movement. So we're relying on that. We're keeping an eye on that for the next couple days, couple more days of upward air movement, and we should be in good territory, at least as far as the instability goes, and then we'll be watching out for the winds with that dry cold front. So I'm going to leave it right there and move on. But thank you very much for allowing me to take the time.
All right, I'm Tyler Mccarty. I serve as the District Forester for the Oregon Department of Forestry Southwest Oregon District. So my area of responsibility covers both Jackson and Josephine counties on private, and we also, through agreement, provide protection for BLM lands as well. So I serve as the agency administrator for this fire, and basically the teams work for all the agency administrators, all the agencies. So I'm also representing Bill Dean with the BLM. I don't know where Bill's at. He's around here somewhere. He'll be around, right there in the back. And then Travis Medema with the Oregon State Fire Marshals Association. So I had some big long notes that I was going to go through, but it's hot in here and I can tell it's miserable for all you guys. So I'm going to keep this short. I'm going to shorten it up a little bit. To reiterate what Austin said, our initial attack, our local firefighters that work here did an outstanding job putting out fires. Between all the agencies combined, we put out over 70 fires. That didn't grow to be large. The only one that we couldn't get a handle on was rum, and that's why we called these folks in to help. Want to also reiterate, we have seen some huge loss on this fire, right? We lost one structure yesterday, or we also lost firefighter Logan Taylor as well, who paid the ultimate sacrifice protecting our communities. It's a sacrifice that none of us in Southern Oregon Fire Service will ever forget. So while there's many different agencies involved in this fire and several different teams, we have 3 different teams assigned, the priorities have never changed from the very beginning of this fire. And that's keeping the firefighters and public safe, that's putting the fire out as small as possible, and that's protecting homes, that's protecting our natural resources, and protecting our recreational areas that make Southern Oregon what it is. I'd like to thank, and honestly, these folks have been working tirelessly around the clock to meet those goals, and will continue to, I think, until the job's met. I'd like to thank the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office for responding to provide protection to all your homes if that fire was to move off of that hill. I'd also like to thank Northwest Team 13 and ODF Team 1 who've been grinding it out up on that slope, trying to prevent the spread down into the communities. Together, all of us make what is the Oregon's complete and coordinated fire protection system. So we'll be around afterwards, all 3 of us agency administrators. If you have questions, come ask.
Okay, our incident commanders are coming up next, and they're going to talk to you as one voice, because even though there's 3 of them, there is one powerful voice behind.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Gales, incident commander for Northwest Team 13. First off, what a great turnout. Thanks for coming out. Happy to be here to share dialogue and conversation with all of you. Was able to visit with you a little bit before we got started. I'll be here, answer any questions as long as you want to be here with us visiting. So thank you all for coming out. Okay, so a few nights ago, things got a little bit squirrely with the weather. We looked at the fire environment. That's fuels, weather, and topography. Working in a tough situation out there. Things moved on us. We made quick decision to bring in ODF Team 1, Joe Hessel, as well as the Oregon State Fire Marshal Blue Team, Scott Majors. We're working as one voice here. 3 ICs, your IC team, representing you. You know, our priorities have been stated. It's community protection. It's timber private lands. It's public and firefighter safety. It's business commerce, getting those rafters back down the river, getting folks downriver to help the lodges that rely on that for income. You know, it's all of that. That's why we're here. You know, we're doing our best to help you. You know, there's been many entities locally that have been a critical part of the success. We heard from Austin. You know, we had his folks out here with us. We had task forces initially from the Rogue Valley. We had people from, you know, the Sheriff's Department, Emergency Management, the river rafting community helped move firefighters around. Local firefighting resources, ODF, some of your local contractors, Graybeck, etc. Those folks have really been busting it for the last 10, 11 days with this fire and holding it where it's at. I mean, hard work that all those entities have done to help us be successful so far in what we're doing. At the end of the day, for me, it's all about relationships, and that starts here in this room with all of you. You can take the information that you've heard from us. Please share it with your friends, family, neighbors, everybody in the community to help us share what's going on out on the line. This is real-time information you're hearing tonight. Obviously, things are very dynamic. We'll continue to do the best we can to provide the information timely so that you all are informed, can help advise what you do based on what the Sheriff's Office takes from our recommendations on evacs if it's necessary. Like our three great ops chiefs have said, things are looking good today. They've made a heck of a lot of progress in the last 48 hours. Additional firefighters are coming in. I'd be remiss not to mention the National Guard. Those folks have been critical in the prior years. They're critical to us to ensure that, your homes, your communities are protected, that there's security out there for all of you. So please, give them a pat on the back as you see them. Please allow us to do our job, share the word on what you heard tonight on what's going on. Take care of yourselves. We're here to answer questions afterwards. I appreciate you all being here. Thank you.
Good afternoon or evening, I guess, at about this point in time, everybody. My name is Joe Hessel, and I'm the incident commander with Oregon Department of Forestry Team 1, one of 3 teams that ODF has available throughout the state of Oregon if needed. One of the benefits of going last is pretty much everything's already been said, so my list has gotten a little bit shorter, and you guys are lucky for that. I could probably talk quite a bit most of the time. I'll just take a minute to maybe put a little bit of a stamp on a couple things you've heard here tonight that I want to reiterate. You heard about our objectives and our priorities, and really the best way for us to meet those priorities and objectives is to minimize the size of the fire, right? Keep that fire footprint as small as we can. And I want to make sure, and you heard it from our ops folks tonight, that that's truly our mission. Everything we do out there in terms of operations is with the thought that we want to keep that fire as small as we can. And so we may not be right on the edge all the time, but if we're not, we're still as close as we can get, okay? So by the time we all leave here, rest assured that fire is going to be as small as we could possibly keep it. That was one. We're running a 24-hour day operation with a really healthy night shift. I'll just leave it there. I think that's an important note. It helps us meet those objectives. I may have a bit more recent numbers. I'm not going to say they're perfect, but you heard earlier we have about 1,500, maybe closer to 2,000 people working this incident right now if you include the camp support. We have over, sorry, wow, that's a lot louder. I should have been here the whole time. We have over 140 engines on the incident. Scott might address that a little bit. We have nearly 50 pieces of heavy equipment, and I'm talking dozers and feller bunchers and equipment like that when I reference that. 21 helicopters are assigned to this fire. And I can guarantee you when we have clear air, we're flying as many as we need to, you guys. We also have all the retardant, I was going to say all the retardant we need. That may or may not be the case depending on what else is going on in the neighborhood, but there's retardant base right here in Medford really close. And there are retardant planes sitting there ready to go as soon as we need them. So my point in mentioning all that is we've had great support in getting the resources that we need for this fire. We're the highest priority in the region right now in terms of fire. And so you guys are getting everything that we're asking for, which is reflected in those numbers. Let's see. Just real quickly, I think you've got the best possible combination of resources you can get on this incident with the wildland resources that Brian and I bring in terms of our teams and Scott's team and OSFM doing the structural side. You cannot have a better combination of resources out there from a wildland or a structural standpoint. It's like a match made in heaven when these teams come together like this. And then the last point I had has to deal with the local community and our local partners, the Sheriff's Department, emergency management. You guys have a very healthy and available group of local contractors, the logging contracting community, the wildland firefighting contracting community that's here, and all the other folks, the vendors in this area. They're familiar with fire, They're here, we call often, and they answer the phone and they show up. So just a big shout out. If you don't know it, you've got a bunch of great fire folks here that are helping us be successful while we're in town. So thank you to those folks. And then I'm going to hand this off to Scott. I just want to say again, thanks for coming out, and we'll be hanging around to answer as many questions as you guys have a little bit later too. So thanks.
Good evening. My name is Scott Majors. I'm the incident commander representing the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Blue Team. It is my honor to serve you all, as it is all of our honor to serve you. Sadly, we have to serve you, but it's our honor to do so. I'm going to ask you a couple favors here tonight. I'm going to give you a little stats first. When the Fire Marshal's office is mobilized, they have the ability through their office to mobilize fire agencies, structural fire agencies throughout the state of Oregon. And I like to always say that it's Oregonians helping Oregonians, because that's what's happening. Whether it's us, whether it's the Wildland Partners, we're here to help you. Right now on the ground, I have 88 structural fire apparatus. There's not a fire department in the state of Oregon that has more than 88. We have 366 men and women manning that apparatus, representing 61 fire departments in the state of Oregon. You guys got the best right in your backyard. I would be remiss if I did not recognize Chief Austin, Rural Metro, and what they did along with Josephine County Fire Agencies and Jackson County Fire Agencies before we got here. They gave us the tools to do the job to protect what we have to protect. I would be darn proud of them. My goal is this. Our goal is this. We speak for one voice. You've heard about the structure, the wildland area, and these people are busting their hind end, make sure that they keep that in check. And right along with them, those structural firefighters, checking up that fire around the houses, keeping it contained, and doing the best to protect your property. I stood on this stage during the Taylor Creek fire. I'm really tired of standing on this stage, by the way. And I told you that I will not make you any guarantees, except one. That if that fire comes down off that hill, and it's looking like it's going to bear down on this community, I will throw every piece of equipment we have and the ones we have waiting to protect your structures. That's what we're going to do. That's the only promise we all can give you. Because anybody who bets against Mother Nature is a fool. So that's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to leave you this one thought. And I sat there earlier and I saw it, and it reminded me what I said about 5 years ago. You teach your children one of the R's, and that's resilience. And right here it says it's the ability to withstand difficult conditions. And apparently back to 1986 and before that, you've been doing just that. It's all about us helping you. I'm going to ask you one last thing, though. Those evacuation levels are important. They are a pain. I can only imagine. But if we ask you to leave, leave. Because those firefighters, wildland, structural, it doesn't matter. If they go into the area and there are people there, their focus is going to be on life safety, not protecting your structures. We give you the warning for a purpose, and that's allow those men and women to do their job. So help us help you. And I will promise you again, we will throw everything we have at this to take care of your community. Thank you very much.
That's what we have for you. And I want to repeat one point that all this entire team made. You have the largest wildland structural fire department in the state in your town. And they're all working for you. That's pretty amazing. All right, we promised you a question and answer period. We're an hour into this. We'll take a few questions. We'll take a few questions from Facebook. I'd like to offer some ground rules, okay? I know everybody has questions, and we promise you that we will not leave until your questions are answered. And with that promise, we have this format. We'll take some general, high-level, community-oriented questions. If you have specific address questions or areas of the fire, we have breakout sessions where you can ask those questions. Okay, we have the incident commanders that are going to be staffed right over here. We have the emergency managers over there with Red Cross, including a organization that's here to help at no cost to move horses and livestock. We have our weather, our smoke, our fire behavior analyst over in that area. We have our operations over here in this area. So look at the sign. If you have specific questions when we get done with this general Q&A, question and answer, we will then break out so that we stay here to answer every one of your questions, because you deserve to ask and we have a responsibility to answer them. Now, with that being said, Eric has a microphone that he's going to bring around to you. So I see a couple of people standing right now. So we're going to stay.
Okay. First of all, I'd just like to thank everybody that's fighting the fire. My issue is I live on the intersection of Russell Road and 3 Pines. Our 3 news networks are not telling us a thing. They will tell you about the smoke. They'll tell you about the temperature. They don't tell you where it's growing, which way it's heading. We don't get any information from the networks.
Okay.
At 10 o'clock last night on Fox News, they said it was 1% contained, and that was about all and a map, and that's all we got.
Okay.
Now, I was here during the Oxio fire that got within a half a mile of my house. They had coverage every day until the fire was out, and we are not getting that. And not everybody here is connected to the internet or has connection that way, and they rely on the radios or the TVs, and we're not getting that information.
Okay, so you are looking for specific fire behavior information and not connected to the internet. So I'm going to have one of our PIOs. Can you raise your hand right there, sir? Please connect with him after this, and he will talk to you and give you that answer. To go to Facebook for a question that came up. The question is, what is a containment line? We use some jargon here in the fire service, and we don't want to use jargon. We want you to understand everything we talk about. So our ops guys, would you like to answer what is a containment line? Looks like John Spencer has it.
Containment lines are lines that we try to contain the fire perimeter, and that can come in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's retardant that we're trying to use. It's our only option, because the ground is too steep to put firefighters in there safely, and so we build a retardant line to try and check and stop the fire's growth. Sometimes it is a hand line dug by crews of firefighters to remove the fuels from the ground so that the fire burns up to it and hopefully checks it up and stops it at that location. Sometimes it is a heavy equipment line. It is wider, bigger, based on fire behavior. Sometimes it is a line that is built with a little fire put on it to back towards the main fire to make a wider containment line. So anytime we mention containment lines, it is a process that we go through to try to build something physically on the ground or put something physically on the ground to check up and stop the fire's forward progress.
2 real quick questions. One, I noticed on the map earlier that where the fire was, I've seen spot fires above. Is that where the firefighters are burning, or had the fire jumped that line? And then the second question is, what can we as a community do for the firefighters? What can we bring, and where do we bring it?
Okay. Again, that's a the second question, public information question. Our public information officer, raise your hand, please. He will be able to answer the second question for you. As far as the containment lines, John Flanagan, would you want to answer that one? Not containment lines, I'm sorry, the fires that are above the containment lines, whether they are spot fires or whether they are firefighters burning.
We can have both. Sometimes we get spot fires. We had today, we had a little spot fire down here they were able to take care of, as well as one in the middle. Over on Whiskey, they've had a little bit of work, but they are doing some burning there as well. Lots of times you'll see smoke or a little more active area, but be aware, especially around the houses. There are firefighters out there 24 hours a day. And, you know, if it's something you're concerned about, you can always call, but we're probably going to know about it, and we're going to be, you know, working on it. And we keep really good, close eye on it, both from the air, from the ground. We keep lookouts posted around. So anything near the fire is a very good chance we are either addressing or using some fire to back to the fire.
Handed a note for the donation question. We do have Red Cross. We can always donate and support Red Cross, who's out there helping the individuals who have been evacuated. There's a
Hi. So it's my understanding that early on the U.S. Forest Service took some degree of command of the fire. Question one, would you explain what their role and degree of geography or overhead was in that? Also, it's also my understanding soon after their arrival they conducted a significant backburn. If so, how was that affected, and was that part of the component that came down into the river and made it around Grave Creek and came up the river?
Okay, good question. And Tyler, come on.
Yeah, I got it. So no, the U.S. Forest Service was never in charge of this fire. They were never on the fire at all in the initial phases. The only time that we had a transition was when Northwest Team 13 showed up, and ODF transitioned the fire to Northwest Team 13.
And they represent what? Northwest Fire, what agencies?
They're a bunch of different agencies on one team. They're made up of multiple agencies.
You asked too, can we share it with other people in the community? Okay, right here in the front. That's okay.
Can you explain exactly what they do to protect the individual residencies?
Like structural protection and what we
Yes.
do to prepare them for a fire? Absolutely. We have Mark Corliss with Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office.
So when we look at the structures themselves, when we look at the structures themselves, we're looking for things like in the gutters, things on the roof. It really truly is the little things that matter. The open vents, there's no screens on the vents or the alley under your house. It can sneak right in there, and one little tiny ember is all it takes to burn a house down. So we look for those things specifically. Wood piles next to your house, we move those. We clean out your gutters. We take brush that's right up next to your house and we try to trim that back. So a big fire front can burn through, and if there's enough defensible space around your structure, it can just burn right through. But it's just that one tiny ember that lands in a spot and has that fuel bed that it's gonna cause that problem. So we look for those little things. It truly is the little things that we look for, that where an ember's gonna land, and that's what we try to get out of the way, and we try to close up all those openings and things like that. So.
It's a great question for all you homeowners out there who want to do some preparation or fire-wise preparation. And those questions can specifically be asked over here at this table where Rick will be from the Firewise as a Firewise professional. There was a question specifically about Stratton Creek, Hog Creek and Stratton Creek holding. Please go over here to the operations section. We're going to go to our breakouts now. Go there, and our operations people will be able to answer that question. Thank you so much for coming out tonight and allowing us to share everything we know for you.